So Barry, to jump right into it, clinical operations managers face enormous pressure today to keep down development costs. And I know you're aware of that, and I think everybody listening in today is dealing with that as well. So let's start off real general here. What are companies doing, in your opinion, to better manage those costs and try to control them?
Yeah, so obviously benchmarking was the highlight and something we're going to talk a lot about today. But in a more general sense, I think we were looking at our protocol designs with more scrutiny. We're looking at our country footprint and where we operationalize trials. We're looking at conducting aspects of virtual trials. We're also working with site networks and trying to manage site performance and really utilize data more now than ever in technology to really help us conduct the trials. So there's a whole host of things going on in the industry that are helping us to evaluate how we go about managing our trials and reducing costs. But ultimately, I think there are a few things that we're doing at Regeneron that John and then Rev can talk about related to developing our budgets and managing them and sourcing and benchmarking. So I'll turn it over to John to make a few comments and Reb as well.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. And as Barry mentioned, Ed, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. So yeah, we've spent a lot of time over the past 2 to 3 years thinking about budget development and how we develop our clinical trial budgets in general, and that includes not just costs like investigator grants and CRO fees, but ancillary services as well. And we've put in a whole new process and framework in order to do that, and which starts very early in the process, as early as we can, to come up with some cost estimates on what it would take to execute a study in the nascent stages of the planning, and try to then work with the teams to ensure that they understand the implications of what they're asking for, and think about scenarios and adjustments to the plans and the impact that those would have. And at a very high level, we go through that process, and then we have, once we get near the final protocol or just past the final protocol, depending on the study, we actually have a review meeting with some senior folks, including Red, Barry, and myself, and some others that meet with the teams to actually go through how we're going to operationally execute the design, the study design. And then once the study is executed, we actually have just implemented a new budget management approach to ensure that we're managing our budgets properly as well. And that, I don't want to get into budget management, is a little bit different than the topic today, but one aspect of that is around changes in scope. And that is, in essence, just a continuation of budget development. When you have a change in scope, what is it? What will it take? What's the impact of those changes? How do you determine the cost? How do you develop some scenarios, et cetera? And a big aspect of that, of course, throughout this whole process is working with our CROs and understanding the costs of executing those studies at the CROs and at other vendors. And I'll turn it over to Rev a little bit, because we've focused on that a great deal. How do we go about conducting the appropriate review and using things like benchmarks to review the costs that come in from the CROs?
Thanks, John. And I'd like to say hello to everyone virtually. So my name's Reb. I'm over here at Regeneron as well from the sourcing side. And to kind of continue on what John was getting at, in terms of from a sourcing perspective, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. From a sourcing perspective, I mean, at a macro level, we also are looking at just, what are the services we're looking to, contract for. So, right up on a regular basis, we're actually always evaluating our models and seeing what we actually need to outsource, either through a functional service provider or full service CRO versus activities that we want to do internally. So there is that activity that we go through to ensure that we really are sourcing for the things we need, as opposed to possibly doing things redundantly with our external partners. The other thing that we're doing is we're always looking at what are we actually paying for the services, both from a perspective of the rates for those services, as well as the work effort associated with the services. So we go through MSA refreshes on a regular basis, and by doing that, we're creating the environment where we're working with our partners to make sure we're paying the right rate and defining the units of work appropriately. And on a regular basis, just because we're looking at functional service providers as options, full service CROs as options, we're always testing the market. And so as part of testing the market, we're actually collecting a lot of valuable information that feeds into our benchmarking exercise that we'll get into a little bit later today.